with you all basically what's available through the U.S. Small Business Administration for those who are already in business and those who might want to start a business. So I'm going to give you the 5-minute quick pitch, if you don't mind. We like to boil down what we do at the U.S. Small Business Administration to the 3 C's, and that's really the core of what we do. The first C is assistance with regards to access to capital. We primarily do this through guaranteeing loans made by private commercial lenders. So we're not a direct lender. We do not provide grants or free money to finance businesses, but we help you leverage the capital that is available through the private capital market. We also have resources to provide to eligible nonprofit organizations funds to provide microloans. Those are loans $50,000 and under that a lot of times home-based businesses or solopreneurs need, but maybe are not able to readily access through regular commercial channel means. We also have a surety bond guarantee program. So for those who are in the construction business who need to have surety bonds to submit bids as well as to convert to payment and performance bonds if they are the successful offer on a contracting opportunity, we provide that service as well. The second C, counseling and training. And we do this primarily through a variety of resource organizations that we partner with or partly fund. Small Business Development Centers, that's a national program where we partner with universities and colleges. Here in Georgia, specifically, we partner with the University of Georgia. They have 17 centers around the state, and I believe they have 5 specifically in Metro Atlanta. They provide free one-on-one consultation for those who are in business and those who are looking to start a business. They also provide training on a variety of topics to help arm the business owner, prospective business owner, with what they need to know in order to maximize their chances for success. Similarly, we have SCORE, which is our volunteer partner organization, made up primarily of retired people, even though you no longer have to be retired to be a member of SCORE. And they provide also free one-on-one consultation, drawing on their wealth of experience as business owners, as well as provide training. We have here in Metro Atlanta 2 women business centers, which focus on one of the fastest growing demographics in the small business community, and that's women-owned businesses. But don't get upset, guys. They will counsel and work with you, so they're not going to turn you away. And then finally, we actually have more recently in Statesboro, Georgia, the Veterans Business Opportunity Center, or VBOC. We got our first one here. They're hosted by the Georgia Southern University. And then finally, the third C is contracting, and specifically focused on federal contracting. We have certifications that relate to the federal procurement market, such as our 8A Business Development Program, which is primarily geared towards minority and other individuals, so it's not exclusively minority, that meet certain criteria. And it allows them for us to work with them specifically over a 9-year period to help them enter the federal procurement arena. We also have the certification for historically unutilized business zone businesses. Those are businesses that are located in basically economically distressed areas and gather a lot of their employees from those areas. And then the women-owned small business certification, which I believe someone mentioned earlier that they had that certification. We also have some tools for federal contracting. First of all, we have the Small Business Mentor Protege program, which is new. It's only literally a couple months old. Originally, that was just for those in the 8A program, but it allows you to work with large companies or other more experienced small businesses to work with you to develop your expertise and capacity, and also allow you to enter joint venture arrangement and teaming arrangements with them. We also have the Dynamic Small Business Search database, which is a tool. It's not the end-all by itself, but it is a tool that you can use to get your information out there. And I do know that contracting officers and primes use that when they're doing their market research on possible contractors. And then Subnet, finally, which is the similar posting of opportunities primes have for possible subcontractors. So if you want to know more, this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you want to know more about what we do, go to sba.gov.
Let's give this young lady a round of applause. please. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very well said, very well said. Please welcome our business roundtable panel moderator, Douglas Faison. He's NAMCO's Vice President of Government Relations and External Affairs. Panelists are Tasha Reed, President, Visionary Management Services Incorporated; Mary Parker, President of All-in-One Security; and of course, the lovely Georgia District Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration, Terry Dennison. Ladies and gentlemen, Douglas Faison.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am so happy to see all of you, and let me just say, I believe we should have about 45 minutes of discussion time with our panelists, and we do plan to include your questions and answers. Let me just say that the primary purpose of the small business panel is to urge policy and corporate decision makers to do the following: to enforce and implement meaningful public and corporate policies that focus on effective diversity and inclusion initiatives, to implement public and corporate policies that focus on effective diverse and small business growth, and provide greater access to contracts and capital in the overall business market. So let me set the table for our discussion this morning. I'm going to bracket women, minorities, LGBTQ, service disabled to mean diverse businesses. And I know we had a little bit of discussion earlier about rebranding, but for the purpose of this, we're just going to call it diverse businesses. But diverse businesses are central to America's economic future and should be supported first and foremost. Diverse businesses represent about 28% of the population in the U.S. and represent only 15% of the total business and 4% of total corporate spend. America's largest corporation will spend more than $80 billion to buy goods and services from diverse business owners. So today, our panelists will give their perspective on how to help policy and decision makers to become better versed in the development of diverse suppliers, as well as the growth of opportunities that diverse business create. So with that, let me just turn my page. Let me just say, we recently had a national election. And we all know that elections brings consequences. But without a discussion about the politics of the outcome, I want us to focus on public policies that impact business-owned, diverse business-owned, both positive and negative. And if negative, what are some of the results? So let's just start with Mary.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Mary Parker with All-in-One Security. Our company is a full-service security firm. We employ almost 500 employees. We've been in business for 15 years, and our company, being full service, we provide security officers for airports and many other facilities. Executive protection, one of the great things that's changed here is that we won't get a chance to secure President Obama as he comes to Atlanta, where we've done so in augmenting their Secret Service. The one thing that I will say is, based on the current proposed agenda, we certainly will be impacted by the new administration. One of the great things that I most appreciate with President Obama's administration is the fact that Obama Healthcare, that was a very major initiative for our country. And so many people just haven't been able to afford the rising cost of insurance to have medical services for themselves and their families, which is a huge positive. The negative impact, however, is on small businesses. As we start our businesses and as we propose various contracts, we're not necessarily prepared for the increased costs that arise with the Obamacare. So that is the negative. However, as a business owner and as one who's always looking for ways to give back, I would compromise myself and some of the benefits I have as a company, and I would encourage many other small businesses to think the same in order for people in our country and our community to have health care provided for them.
Ms. Reed, how might you add to that?
Well, I think a lot of people were shocked by the election, and I think that we as a people have been through worse, though. We have come a long way, and I think Donald Trump is not going to really make a difference in the success of us small businesses. My business was birthed out of what we went through in 2008. I birthed my business out of the lowest place we could have been at. I had lost everything, and I was able to rise up out of that and be able to create a company that I have today, which our largest contract today is a security contract with the United States Coast Guard, which is $3.1 million, and we just recently was awarded another contract with the federal government, with the Army, for 1.3. With that being said, I understand Trump is in position, but we are too. And that we got to take back our power and work even harder as small business owners to show him that he doesn't have the power. Trump started out just like we did, if you think about it. Yeah, he had more privileges because of his skin color, but at the end of the day, we have privileges too, being children of God and being in the position we are today. Our forefathers and our people before us went through a lot worse than we have. So looking at Trump and trying to give him all this power over the next 4 years, I don't see it. I feel like my business is going to continue to thrive and do well with him in office. That's just my opinion.
Well, thank you. Ms. Dennison,
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you a political question.
Thank you.
But think about this for a moment.
Okay.
Think about the more positive attributes of what government can provide to businesses, and let's focus on what would you think some of the more positive attributes would be.
Okay. When I heard the question, I think the thing that came to my mind is, for diverse, businesses, is the issue of scaling. If you look at the statistics over the last several decades, there's no question that the number of diverse businesses are increasing. More of them are being created. But when you look at other indicators such as revenues, receipts, or number of employees, it's gone up some, but not to the same extent as numbers. We have a lot of solopreneurs, a lot of sole proprietors. So I think one of the things that government can do, and I know at the Small Business Administration, we have been trying to work towards how do we scale businesses once they get started? How do we get them to get to the next level to be able to then be in a position to hire people? Because let's face it, diverse companies are going to more than likely be the ones who will employ diverse people.
Absolutely.
So I see scaling and creating capacity being a major thing, and to me would be the most impactful.
Absolutely. Did anybody else want to share? Or?
I would like to also add that it would absolutely be beneficial to the small businesses if it wasn't so much red tape with the programs that the government offer For example, Ms. Dennison, you spoke about the various programs, the minority business, the hub zones, and 8A program. I'm certified, our company is certified virtually in every aspect in order for us to gain greater access. However, you've got to spend 2 or 3 years just finding the right places to go. And I want to address the point the lady made earlier about having access. How do you get access? If the government and some of the corporations would just create some type of repository where everything is required by the business owners and we could do a one-stop shop. Instead, we've got to go to this agency and that agency, and it takes so much time. It takes so much money. It costs us so much in preparing to do business with an entity that is the largest revenue generator and also the largest client that any of us small businesses could have. Yet, it is so extremely difficult to get there. Relationship building, you spoke about that earlier, is absolutely key. Without relationships within some of these areas, which you've got to spend a lot of money and a lot of time creating, it's virtually impossible to get into some of those agencies in terms of creating those relationships to a point where one is actually awarded a contract. We're 15 years old. I understand networking and I understand relationship building, but the process that is available for us right now is too difficult.
I'd like to speak on that because I'm actually in the 8A program. And I entered the 8A program in 2013, and I understand, I've heard a lot of people like yourself speak about how it's difficult for people to break into the government agencies and stuff like that. Fortunately, when I got into the 8A program, I think like we were talking about, people have certain skill sets as small businesses, and when you don't have the skill set or the energy or the resources to focus just on the BD and marketing and put in a full goal, it can be extremely hard. What I did in my first 3 years, first entering the program, is I beat the pavement. I was like a telemarketer, and I got on the phones and I was calling people, and I was doing the unusual. And to be honest, I'm 3 years into the program, and I do appreciate the 8A program and what it has done for me and my business, because I would not have the revenue and the contracts that I have now and the opportunity to receive the sole source opportunities that's under $4 million, because in the 8A program, that's what you can get. And I have had the honor and privilege of doing a lot of contracts under sole source. But with that being said, I feel like it was a lot of legwork that I had to do. It wasn't like something that they was marketing and say, hey, I'm looking for an 8A, or I had to beat down their doors in order to get it. And she's right, it should be more of an initiative on the agency side. But as you know, like I said, we come from a place where we know we have to work twice as hard, unfortunately. And you just have to put the work in until they will notice you. Once they notice you, there are people in those agencies who will continue to give you the work. That's what I've learned from my experience. And sometimes it takes, and this is one of my strategies I share with you guys. A lot of times we as business owners, we want these contracts, these large ones, but take a small one. That's what I've done so many times. I've taken small contracts that were probably 15 to 20,000, and now I'm doing business with them, those same agencies with contracts over 100,000. So it was about building a relationship, and it took time, but sometimes we got to get in our foot in the door and show the agency what we can do, and they'll keep coming back to us.
Absolutely, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
We've used a lot of those same techniques as many other business owners are doing. But the reason I spoke to that is because we're talking about ways that the government can, areas where they can improve. And I strongly believe that that is one of the areas to not make the process so difficult. We've been extremely successful, but as a norm, you know, an example would be I can develop a relationship with someone at AT&T or UPS and so forth, it's not as difficult within corporate once you establish the relationships, and I believe that is based on processes. So I'm just suggesting that, from a governmental perspective, and small business can be a little bit more small business friendly.
Okay, well, let's segue into another question here, and I'll ask that we start with Tasha, and then we can work down. And of course, with our small business partner, wherever a question that may not be appropriate, I understand.
I'll let you know.
Okay, so let's get started with the second question. What should corporations do to create sustainable communities and economic viability through successful partnership with small, diverse businesses?
With me working primarily in the government space, one of the things that Ms. Dennison talked about was the mentor-protege program. And I think, really what the SBA has to really watch, and some of the things I've experienced, but have, the purpose of the mentor-protege agreement is to have a large business partner with a small business. And that is great, but I think, what the SBA needs to do is oversee that a little bit more and put more checks and balances in place, because a lot of times these larger firms, they do engage with the smaller firm, but only to their benefit. And so, coming down with, stricter regulations, and I know that they have talked about, stopping or kicking out people out of the mentor-protege program that who are not following by these rules and using these smaller businesses and companies in order to take advantage of the opportunities, but then not really helping the growth of the company. So I think just, putting more checks and balances in those agencies, with the agencies, with the mentor companies. But I think the joint venturing and mentoring is definitely the way to go in order to grow the businesses and bring together those relationships that we wouldn't probably have the opportunity of working with those people.
Right. Ms. Parker, would you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I will address that from a corporate perspective. I believe that in those relationship buildings, we as business owners must understand that it goes two ways. It's not just learning how to do business with the corporations. Rather, we've got to become more creative and dig deeper into those relationships and help the corporations understand the value that we bring to their organization when they know how to do business with us. We become their representative within the community. For example, I have a client that 6 years ago, we began providing them with just off-duty law enforcement to provide traffic control at their temporary construction zones. Well, that was great, but what that company didn't understand were all the things that we did, our relationships within the community, and how we'd better serve them as partners if they knew better what we did. In addition to that, it gives us an opportunity as business owners to better understand the things that companies need that's kind of outside of the scope that we're currently providing. And in doing so, you're creating a relationship where people trust you because they know you, and also you're increasing an opportunity for an unsolicited mentorship as well. And mentorship isn't always just dealing with people within your industry, because we need to know the operational aspects of our businesses as well. And those are some of the things that I have found invaluable with many of our corporate partners.
Right. And Ms. Dennison,
Yes.
I understood you to talk a little bit about your mentor-protege program through the SBA.
Yes.
Could you enlighten us a little bit more about the mentor-protege program?
Okay. As I mentioned, we've had this in the 8A program for quite some time, and through a couple of statutes that were passed, like in the last 7 years or so, we essentially had a mandate to create one for all small business, not just the 8A program. So in that program, a small business of any ilk, it could be just straight small business or one, Hub Zone, 8A, et cetera, can apply for this program where they would work with a mentor. Now, the mentor, a lot of times they are small. Are large, but it's not necessary. You could have a more experienced small business, for example, mentor a newer small business. But one of the, main benefits of it in terms of partnering with a large business is that with that large business, the mentor-protege relationship could actually enter into a joint venture and still be considered small. Because normally, without the program, if you are large and a small, you're not small and you would not be eligible for any type of small business contracts. Of course, that does, that allows the mentor, encourages the mentor to do this, but one of the downsides is that someone with maybe less than honorable intentions might take advantage. I think the agency has worked based on the experiences and some of the things we learned in the 8A program, protege program, have tried to build in some other things with regard to this all small mentor protege program. One thing is to provide guidance on what to look for in a mentor and what some red flags are that would make one think, okay, I need to do something else, or I need to bring this to the attention of the contracting agency or the SBA. But the mentor, in addition to having that contractual relationship, they can provide financial assistance, technical assistance, et cetera.
Okay. Well, I want to move on to another question, another great question. Diverse businesses are encouraged to help communities. What is the current trend that addresses employment for opportunities for diverse population? In other words, what are you doing as a diverse business to ensure that those communities in which you serve, how are you helping those communities to grow? And in addition to looking at opportunities for diverse populations.
I'd like to address that because that's a very sweet spot for me. As we have gained knowledge throughout our relationships and our travels and scaling our businesses, I believe we have an obligation to our community as well as to other business owners to transfer the talent. I've been very, very proactive there. As a matter of fact, I started a program called FACTS. Last year, I was spending 40 hours a month with 20 small businesses. They were only getting 2 hours each per month. So I prayed about it and thought, okay, Lord, you really blessed me to gain so many skills and resources. How can we package this? And I share that with other small businesses to help them avoid many of the pitfalls and give them access to information that I didn't have when I started my business. So I started a program called FACTS. And FACTS is an entrepreneurial training that gives focus, analyze, commit, and strategies. And these businesses spend not with an online computer base or webinars or so forth, but they spend 4 hours every month the first year. Now we're doing it 6 hours per month. And I'm actually training them based on what I didn't know when I started my business and where I started building my teams, access to capital. I bring in all the resources, my bankers, the legal, to help these businesses get set up properly, understand the importance of being a CEO and not an employee of their company. It has been extremely successful. We had 16 of the 20 to graduate in April, and we just graduated another 9 businesses. So those businesses are now ready to go out, and each of them have increased their employee base. They've done more hiring. They've earned contracts. They've become certified with the various entities where we know that they can do business. But more importantly, these businesses have learned who they are, what they're selling, who's buying what they're selling, and who their competitors are. Because a billion-dollar company is not a competitor to a small business. So I've helped them to understand that many times the competition is not what they're after, but they want to ensure that people know that they're going to deliver what they sell and with quality. The second thing I did was form a foundation. We have the Mary Parker Foundation Raising Other Generations. And what we're doing, we're providing scholarships for not just underprivileged students, because I think with training, all children are privileged, but we are providing scholarships to those students that we identify have earned it. We've partnered with Microsoft so that our kids can go in and begin learning how to do software coding instead of playing games all the time. We're teaching them to think entrepreneurial, learn how to create your own games so other people are buying your apps instead of spending all that time there. In addition to that, we recognize 5 different generations. 5 generations are on stage for our annual gala, and our young people, do you know some young children have never met people that we call grandma and grandpa? They don't know that. So we also are serving as surrogate grandparents, surrogate parents, and so forth. And then finally, once a year, we bring in 300-400 students, and we provide them with backpacks loaded with school supplies. So the community knows what we're doing, and we're very, very actively involved.
Okay, does anybody? Yes, that's fantastic.
Kudos.
Glory.
Yes. So I was, what I have been doing, I haven't been in business as long as my counterpart right here, but I've been in business now since 2010, been in the government space now 3 years, going into my 4th year. And one of the things I have done with other small businesses, like we have talked about before, a lot of us are solopreneurs. We are individuals who run a small business. So I have found out, okay, you're good at accounting, you're good at BD, you're good at logistics, you're good at security, you're good at this. I basically started building teams and building teaming relationships in order to go after opportunities. Because like she said, we are small, but together, if we come together and work together on these projects, we could become large. So that has been my strategy, and I think that has been my success in this business as well, because I do business not only in the state of Georgia, but all over. I have a project in Salt Lake, Utah, Sheboygan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Miami, Florida. So I'm all over the United States, and people say, how do you do this? And it's about building the relationships with other small businesses and not getting a whole pie, but getting a piece of pie so we can continue to grow and develop our businesses. And so with that being said, that not only helps me and my community and me able to give back and be, economically strong in my community, but able to give other small business opportunities, other small business the opportunity to do the same. So that is what I've been doing in my last 3 years with the opportunities that I have received. And I do not say no to no opportunity, because I know it's always another small business out there we can work together to get it done.
Thank you. I'm going to move into our last question here, because I think it's so important. NAMCO, for example, is a small grassroots organization. But the question really goes to, what can we do to encourage our corporate partners, corporate America, to invest in smaller grassroots organizations? I like to refer to it as diversifying diversity, to help us to dispel the myth and the stereotypes of minority businesses, and give those diverse firms the platform and the support needed to grow into the firms capable of doing business with Fortune 500 companies. So let's just take a just brief responses, and then I want to get this opened up to the group out here. So let's start with Ms. Dennison.
I think that maybe the overall approach, regardless of what the specific strategies are, has to be you approach the corporations that this is a value proposition. You know, it's not philanthropic, it's not a feel-good thing, tied to dollars and cents. And that, you know, in engaging diverse businesses, you're actually building your supplier base. You know, it's not a charity. So you always have to approach them and show the business case for why this makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the corporations must be intentional as well. One of the things that a couple of clients that I've been able to help understand is the importance of utilizing the current suppliers to go out into the community, business community, and identify other businesses that they can bring in to their organization to do business as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just going back to, like I said, my government space is a little bit different from the private sector, but always identifying and working with other small businesses and informing them of other opportunities when you don't have the capabilities, but bringing other capabilities to the table in order to perform the contracts and meet the need of the agency or the company that you might be looking to work with.
Okay. Do we have time for another question, or are we opening it up to the audience now? Thank you. So we'll make this also a brief response to the question as well. Think about your successful relationships with your corporate partners. And think about if you were in a position to help other corporations to become well-versed in the development of minority suppliers, as well as the creation of growth for contracting opportunities. What would you say to those corporations out there that may not be as grounded as some of the corporations that are here today with us in the audience, that may not have a formalized diversity program?
I would actually say to the corporations to get away from your database. Mm-hmm. Take a look at businesses that are successful within your organization and continue to develop them, but also instead of having diversity initiatives, have more business development initiatives. For example, one of my clients, if you're already in there, then they're asking me, what other things can you do? But instead of just trying to grow a database, be intentional, and I use that word intentionally, but find out the things that you really need and go out and identify businesses that you are aware of or that some of your partners are aware of, and bring them in to prepare them to handle those contracts that you have. We spend a lot of time going to these diversity conferences and so forth and so on, and we go back with, maybe 2 good contacts, but the rest of it is just fluff. Get away from some of the fluff, lean it down, and dive in there and create some new businesses. This one client, as an example, they're not looking to grow their database with all the minorities and female and all the other acronyms within their reach. Rather, they're interested in creating fewer successful businesses. And by doing so, they're bringing contracts to the table. And I think that's a win-win, both for the organizations and the businesses.
Ms. Dennison and/or Ms. Reed, do you have any comment on this, or?
No, I agree. I think that what corporations can do is create spaces for people to come in and present and to share. This is what I can do for you as a contractor. And so that they don't have just a list of names, but they actually have a face with the name and have heard directly what their capabilities are.
Sounds great.
And I agree as well, but like I was going back to having more checks and balances and accountability to the corporations out there, not just saying, hey, I'm going to do it, show us you're doing it and how you're doing it, and holding people accountable.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like we might have some time for Q&As. Does anyone have Q&As for this great panel? I know there's got to be one or two out there.
Well, that may be an indication of how well of a job you all did as panelists.
Oh, we do have
Thank you.
one.
We have one question?
Out here.
Okay, we do have one question.
Yeah.
And after this question, we would like our panelists to kind of stand where they're seated for a photo op before we move to the rear of the room for the second. One of two up front, two of two in the rear. A question.
How's it going? My name is Ozzy Bunbury. I work for a small business, my wife's,
Smart man.
Okay.
and I enjoy it. One of the questions, well, it's a couple of statements that as I was listening to you guys. Necessity, I've heard this before, necessity is the mother of invention. And one of the things you were saying was about how find the needs in the community to address. One of the things about business, and when I received my undergrad in business administration, we had probably about 6, 7 classes about business ethics. And they kept over and over again reinforcing about ethics. Greed, to me, is one of the biggest killers of relationships. And the whole idea that you're trying to make a buck, to me, kind of dampens and dulls person's senses when it comes down to creating jobs in communities. Money's going to come if you do things the right way. If you reach out and try to do things to affect a change in the community, you will see change. But if you need to do it properly. The whole idea behind persons trying to continuously avoid paying taxes and trying to do all types of shortcuts continuously or working on the good old handshake is an issue that a lot of people continuously having themselves in small claims court based on the fact is that you said this and this is because of greed a lot of times. So my point that I'm trying to address is that we should definitely work at trying to make sure that we do things the correct way. We pay taxes, we go through our contracts, we make sure that the communication that we have with our counterparts is clear and concise, that we always make sure that that the contracts are written and explained, and that we try to live up to the contracts. If they can't, address it. Let's not try to just chase the almighty dollar. Let's make a change in the community and affect change and growth in that particular way. So, thank you.
Thank you for that comment. We'll take one last question, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Reverend Jeffrey Benoit. I hear the platform that you 3 fabulous entrepreneurs have created for yourselves and what you're doing in your community. But I go back to the question of entrepreneurship, and that is just taking someone by the hand, taking 2 or 3 by the hand, and really educating them, ingraining them with the strength to change their mind in order to change their lives. Are we getting down to that level? And I know it's a time burden opportunity that it takes from you in what you're doing. I know that. But if we don't do that, then we are turning our back on them for our personal gain. And when it's all said and done, did we really give back to that individual, to that community? So I do hear what you're doing as far as your corporations and your foundations and whatnot. But the question is, are we really reaching back and bringing them into the office, and you're going to sit here today, and I'm going to show you this contract. I'm going to teach you this contract. I want you to be this entrepreneur. I want you to have this opportunity. I want to teach this to you.
I would like to answer that question. It really boils down to passion. If if you're only thinking of yourself and I'm the smartest person in the room on my team, it's not going to work. I'm very, very passionate about what I do in terms of the training of other entrepreneurs, and primarily because, to the young man's point, in terms of integrity and honesty, do you mean what you say, and are you really doing what you mean? Well, just like a child, other business owners understand that as well. I could tell you how much time I spent, how much time was wasted with people saying, contact me for this and contact me for that, which is one of the other reasons that I formed this training program, is to teach the people, first of all, to focus. Understand what your mission is and your purpose, and everything else should align with that, your core values, the type of clients you want to serve, and the time that you want to spend developing yourself. Part of that program gives those entrepreneurs the same exact training that I went through for TUC, the Governor's Mentor Protege program, the 8A program, and not only that, but we provide them with the websites. If they're application process, we do it. We brought in our financial people to sit down, make sure they understand their financial statements, how much is it costing them to make the money they're making. So we get down to the real nuts and bolts of running a business. It's not about, as a security, putting on a uniform and going out and standing on someone's post for 8 hours. No, we're transforming the mindset from an employee to an employer and acting like a CEO.
This is absolutely stunning. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, that is the type of dialogue we like to encourage at our roundtables, and this panel, just like the one before it, has stimulated the mind, and everyone is engaged. Now, the lights are very bright on these panelists. They can't see you like I can. This audience is engaged. We'd like to give you all a round of applause, please. If you can stand where you're seated for a photo op, Mr. Faison, could you join them? Thank you, Tasha Reed. Thank you, Mary Parker, and thank you, Terry Dennison.